Welcome to the Paalam Labs podcast, where we bridge business strategy and emerging technology one conversation at a time. Today, we're talking about something that doesn't always make the boardroom agenda, but in the age of AI, it absolutely should. Here's a stat that should make every executive take notice. Organizations that fail to govern their master data are 3 times more likely to see their AI projects stall or fail. Most leaders assume that's an AI problem. It's actually a data problem. And to unpack that, I have the perfect guest. Sauvik Banerjee is a global technology leader with over 16 years of experience delivering complex data transformations across healthcare, financial services, and consulting. He has built data strategies, governance frameworks, and MDM platforms for some of the largest organizations in the country. And today, he's going to share what it actually takes to get your foundation ready for an AI future. Let's get into it.
So, Sauvik, thanks a lot for being in our podcast. You were actually the first guest for the podcast that we are kickstarting.
First of all, Tipu, many congratulations for this start. It's exceptional, and I have known that the way you have thought through this is really amazing. And thanks for making me the first participant.
So maybe you can provide us and the audience a little bit of background on what drew you to MDM, how you got into it, and how you see it evolving in the field.
I have been with data management for almost 16 plus years now. And it has been a journey of evolvement. It has been a journey of commitment. It has been a great sensation of how we understand the data and the age of technology with the growth of AI, right? Having that said, master data management is a key imperative for any data journey as we are evolving towards automation, towards frameworks, towards all the new world that we are seeing today. I think master data management is something that adds a lot of value. I come from a data background. Software, computers was my passion since I was a kid. I was always very objectified kid, more like mathematics, computer science than a reader, right? So that has motivated me to be in this field. And as when from our world perspective, when we land into the world of technology, we see a different dimension when we come to corporates, right? And the dimension it goes from usual, the Javas and the mainframes of the world, and how technology evolves so fast, and you have to be parallel to it as well as being proactive. Right? So that has always been an emphasis, and that has always kept me alive through the process.
Master data management has been around for decades, but most organizations still treat it as a back office data project. MDM isn't a technology problem, it's the business foundation that determines whether your AI investments actually pay off. I spoke to Sauvik on how senior leaders and C-suite executives are building on MDM to prepare for an AI future.
I remember when we specifically talk about data, how data has evolved over the past 20 years. It's always been so critical. And I think right now we are probably in a place where it cannot be more critical than where we are in terms of data. So in your experience working with different executives, from a C-suite perspective, when it comes to master data management, what do you think actually moves the needle?
It's a great question. I think from a CXO perspective, I come from a background where I've seen different industry trends and themes all across, right? Like, for example, when we talk about a retailer side of the house, how, things like product management or product information management, or when you go to the QSRs of the world, which is more like menu management organizations like the McDonald's of the world. On the flip side, when we go to banking, how commercial banking, retail banking. So everybody has so many different use cases. And I think MDM is a chunk where it solves a lot of business problems. I'd never think MDM is something which is a technology game. It's always the business value that gets added with a master data management overall adoption. The key trend that I've seen at the CXO level is the adoption, right? Somewhere we are still at a place where we are very, very reactive versus proactive when adopting MDM. So we know what problem is going to happen. When the problems happen, we be reactive. We go from right to left instead of left to right. We go to the bottom, and then we understand a use case that an MDM can resolve. So now I've seen the trend where the market leaders, where the C levels, they understand the value, right? Years ago, it was very hard to bring to the perspective that MDM can hold a value, because MDM was an overhead, like you said, right? Because there's always a new technology, there's always a new process. People needs to, upskill themselves to learn more and more things. And now I think people realize the value of it. Even when we go to the AIs of the world and we are solving bigger problems and bringing what is going to give me the right sets of results, it's the data. If the data is inaccurate, if the data is coming from different systems, which is not giving me the value, then nobody in the world, even you and me or any agentic frameworks in the world, can give you the right reasoning of why this is happening. So it's a granular level of how we want to advance our data quality management process.
So we are moving so fast in the AI world right now. For AI, we talk about data being the foundation. I'm sure everybody wants to do AI, and everybody wants to do AI fast, even more critical for them. When people say they want to be AI ready, what do you see as the biggest gap in that section of what they think in terms of being AI ready and where they actually are?
I would say the great question. At the same time, it has got multiple variations of answers, right? Readiness is a big subject today. We call ourselves AI readiness in terms of having a right infrastructure. There might be a definition of AI readiness when people knows the use cases and that we can resolve. There is a side of AI readiness where people have built AI capabilities and they are uplifting that through agentic frameworks and through different models. Now we have to also think that AI is moving very fast. There is these models being created every day. There's templates creating every day. There's things that you can just do 70% faster than you used to do it before. From an organization standpoint, I think that that readiness is really, really that we need to evaluate from a ground level. So when I talk to my customers, everybody says today we want to do something which is going to be a better tomorrow that can adapt with AI. But if I ask them, what do you mean by AI readiness? They still don't have a definition. So the bottom line is we have to kind of understand our current organization challenges, because the foundation that we've built from over the period of time, the legacy systems, the processes, right, the workflows, the management of it, the governance of it, that should not be impacted. And how do I make that particular entire journey meaningful with an AI that makes you a AI ready company? So you have the skills, you have the materials, more importantly, you understand the use cases, how I can improve my day to day, how I can improve my business process, right? There are still people sitting on the stakeholder side who are using uploading Excel sheets and who are resolving data within spreadsheets. And, they're still using like mainframes of the world.
Everyone talks about being AI ready, but when you peel back the layers, most enterprises are still running on fragmented data, legacy systems, and yes, spreadsheets. Sauvik breaks down in the next segment what it actually takes to fix that foundation before AI can do its job.
Couple of things you mentioned around, like the legacy systems and people using spreadsheet. Who doesn't love spreadsheet? Every organization that says they're technology
Right.
first, I see them working with more spreadsheets than you can ever imagine. Now, what happens with all these legacy systems and these Excel spreadsheets is it creates a lot of fragmentation, right? Even before we can have a conversation around AI, we need to be able to fix the data around it. And data is so fragmented, it becomes so challenging for us to even imagine or dream about what AI could mean to the organization. So in your experience, what have you seen around trying to address that big challenge around data fragmentation, getting those silos together? How do you get that ready for a future AI world?
Oh, absolutely. this is a very common problem across enterprises, right? I think the way data management has evolved, like people, the enterprise architects in the world, we used to build a single system called as ODS. From ODS, we started to have data warehouses, then we have data lakes of the world. But what are we doing? We actually, in the legacy world, we're actually just throwing in data so that it becomes your centralized application to host your consumers and downstream applications, all the ETLs of the world. Now, from there, data management got evolved. It said that, hey, listen, rather than relying on siloed and fragmented data across source systems, let's change the single source of truth. Let data be the single source of truth at an enterprise level, right? From there, the conversation around data strategy started, where, you know, all the different fabrics of the world, or, how we build the semantic layers of the world, and then cloud came into the picture. So how I see things is data strategy is always important. Your domain-centric models are all very important. Your semantic layers are very important because these belong to the enterprise architecture. If you don't have that, then you don't own the data. You still always be relying on your data publishers and the data custodians of the world, which could be third party, which could be the Pegas of the world, all those people. But to own a system of data, to own the definition of a strategy from a data standpoint, and to make your architecture consumable in terms of lift and shift or whatever that is, that's imperative to make that readiness across the quality of data for a future. It could be in AI as a future. I don't see AI as a future anymore. AI is present right now. But I see in the future models and whatever, all the merger acquisitions happening across the world, all of that needs to fit into that ecosystem of your data architecture. Because if you don't have that, you always have a new merger, you always going to go back and fix your legacy, again, come back. So that's going to be a long running process. And it's going to be a lot of manual interventions, a lot of cost.
The data strategy is not just about getting the data ready at this point in time, but thinking about it architecturally, from a long perspective, so that we are ready to move into bigger and greater things when it comes to emerging technologies like AI. Like you said, a lot of people just want to solve something for today and this week. And that is one of the challenges I've seen. What is the biggest problem that you see in terms of people embracing these kind of challenges around data architecture, master data management? What prevents them from going to the next?
I always consider myself in places where, I split these problems into business and technology. I always work with people and try to, get to a point of agreement that let's not technology override our intentions. Technology will come, it will upgrade, it will bring a lot of value. Always see what you can adapt from there, from an organization standpoint. There might be great, bigger king beds available in the world, which can make you sleep amazing. But if my house doesn't fit that king bed, what's the point of getting it? So that's how I see it. But I think people have realized the problems more from right to left now than being left to right, which means that now, before at some point, we used to understand the business challenge. Like, for example, customer 360 as one of the biggest challenge that I've seen, that fragmented customers. If you go to insurance companies, your customer definition changes. There is always like leads, there's prospects, there's employee, there's employers, there's hierarchy between customers. If you go to healthcare, your customer model becomes like, patients, members, your clerical analyst, your nurses, everybody are members or the customer definition in one way or the other. So now, at one point in time, your problem is to come to you such a way that, hey, my customer is not getting the benefit because the data is fragmented. That was your problem statement. Now you go back, that's your left side. Now you go back to the right, find it out where the problem happened, and then you realize it. Now you come back. Now, I think business as well as technology is becoming smarter. They know where the problem lies. They know that this is what I'm missing, and that's creating that problem. And they have got all the industrialists in the world like us who can help them to navigate that particular operation, right? So I think data quality challenges will still persist as we are moving to more advanced data platforms, as we are moving to all the social medias where the data can be fed from anywhere, anyhow. I think that will be a key challenge, and that will still sustain as we are growing as an organization.
Getting your data in order is only half the battle. The harder question is, who owns it? Sauvik makes the case that without clear governance, even the best MDM implementation is just the starting line, not the finish.
That was a key insight around data quality and how that becomes really important. You kind of mentioned that organizations are slowly figuring it out. That brings us to how do we govern that particular quality? So, what are the biggest challenges when it comes to MDM, specifically around data governance? And more importantly, how do you decide who owns what when it comes to the data world to make sure that you have a good, strong MDM strategy for the future?
That's a very good question. MDM without a data governance to me is more like, the eggless chicken walking around. I mean, data governance is imperative because we see data governance in the lenses of, data classification, data policies, user groups, data stewardship. So from an MDM lenses that I've seen across is how do I take the right decision around the data? So a lot of places I've seen, Tipu, is that you do a good master data management implementation and you say, hey, we win the journey. But your journey actually begins from that point. I've been to places where we start off with building a right data governance strategy, which means that who are my sets of people? And data governance comes from all the aspects, right? It's a bigger subject altogether. You bring in people aspect, you bring in process, you bring in technology. A lot of places that I've seen, including the industry that I've worked on, we don't have a proper governance model. We don't have a proper sets of people or groups who are able to take the right decision. We don't have the owners of the data. That's the bigger chunk of problem. Nobody wants to take ownership.
Yeah.
Business blames on IT blames on business. They blame that this is not my data, this is IT who owns it. IT says, I'm not the source of truth. Let's say you consider a banking world. Uh, Regulatory and compliance is one of the bigger chunk of policies that we need to marry across our solution. Fraud and analytics. So there are groups of people who manages that. Now they're completely business, but there has to be an IT business who works as a layer between where you're getting the data from and where you're also working to ensure that your data doesn't bite in the world of fraud and analytics,
Yeah.
right? So again, from this end to that end, the mix of people, everybody has a responsibility on the data. Nobody can say that, hey, I am the sole owner of this. Again, people can challenge me. I've seen otherwise as well. But so when MDM comes into the picture, I have the data. I still need to make sure that, hey, if me as a Sauvik has got three different versions coming from three different sources, and there's like my phone number is incorrect in one system, my address is different in another system, who is the person who's going to make sure that the data, the Sauvik that is going on the right hand side to any of the regulatory compliance is the right Sauvik? So that's where building those governance policies are imperative for a successful journey of MDM.
Like everybody needs to be responsible. There has to be governance. There has to be ownership. Makes total sense and it becomes really critical. In a real world, who makes those decisions? How do you decide between, hey, this data needs to be owned on the technology side versus this data needs to be owned on the business side? And you even brought up a layer in between called the business technologies or business analysts. If there's someone listening to the podcast and someone wants to know, makes sense to me philosophically, but in the real world, how do I implement it? What would be your recommendation to them?
I will say it's a challenge to implement because we are in the reactive world. It's very hard to start something from the scratch. You cannot, or I cannot take a decision of, hey, stop everything for 6 months. Let's build from the scratch. We don't have time, to be very honest. What we have time for is it's build on top of existing. Keep it refining, and wherever you get to, that not be the right thing that you have intended to do, but there's no option because the world is moving. So to your initial point, who owns it? I've seen enterprises, we have still that problem of holding a particular knowledge in people's mind. If an architect is working in an organization for 20 years, the amount of knowledge from a business standpoint, what files we send to them, where they take it from, that process building, that technology mapping, that technical asset that person has,
Right.
it's embedded. And that's a very common challenge because as an organization, I don't want to advocate that. We want to advocate your institution to carry that entire journey of how business process works through different stakeholders. So if I join a new organization, it's going to take me time to understand that business process. So that becomes harder to build the right governance, but at the same time, those are the people who can make that data governance journey very, very efficient. That person might not be a decision maker, but then the way we can form that governance model is where we can make those institutions or those group of people who are sitting on the legacy side, seeing the world from end to end, to decide and to give that particular insight of how the journey has evolved over the period of time, so that we are able to build that complete hierarchical governance structure to implement larger programs.
Traditional MDM was built for structured data, tables, fields, attributes, but AI runs on everything: documents, videos, APIs, social feeds. I asked Sauvik whether MDM as a discipline has kept pace and whether governance can stretch that far.
Yeah. So let's add a little bit of complexity to that situation, right? So when we talk about MDM, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my traditional understanding of MDM is all related to structured data, right? It's all about how do we take the data, put it into data warehouses, data silos, make sure there's one master data for everything. Now with AI coming into the picture, there it creates another layer of complexity around unstructured data. When we talk about governance, beyond our standard tables and data fields and attributes, we have to talk about the myriad of data that sits in documents, videos, files that's out there. So has MDM as a field or a capability changed in when we throw this additional unstructured data into it? Are we looking at MDM
Oh,
differently?
absolutely. I mean, we are not in the world of relational tables and just talking about facts and dimensions anymore. Of course, they're important, right? Um, MDM as a now this is more architectural and I would say more an MDM technology challenge, right? That you're just highlighting, and most of the leading technology platforms across master data management, be it Informatica's of the world or LTO or Prophecy or Atacama, they've all built on SaaS platforms these days, right? Which means that now the backend database is inaccessible and you make decisions across all kinds of data in a spreadsheet. You can get a data from a media file. You can get a data from all the different JSONs and REST APIs of the world. But I think the flexibility that these leaders are providing in absorbing the MDM data has been tremendously helpful, because now we are not talking MDM as a siloed program anymore. We talk MDM as part of a larger data initiative. We talk MDM in terms of larger, like a data strategy implement, Delta Lake implementations, and all those particular things. So there, that canonical model and that flexibility across data formats and data structures has to be important. So I've seen that evolvement of my journey, and now as I speak, I'm running few programs which is completely focused on MD migrations, because people wants to move out of those legacy SQL based, Oracle based MDM platforms to SaaS based, where they can have more and more better flexibility across the data ingestions and outbounds of the world.
Yeah, and you did bring this up before, right? Related to agentic AI and things like that. Once we talk about unstructured data, there has to be a specific level of iterative mechanism to clean up the data to your data quality point. How is the industry progressing when it comes to including human in the loop? Are people even understanding what human in the loop means?
How I want to answer that question could be through my perspective, right?
Yeah.
I always think it in the way that we have to be ready for AI, but we have to drive AI. AI cannot drive us. So the human gatekeepers are very important. In the data world, it will be important because no AI processes can make the decision for us. But where AI can help is, what are the rooms of automations that we can do in a successful journey of an MDM. For example, we are seeing some use cases around master data management, operational side of the house, where we see that we can enhance and optimize the process of our data stewardship, which can help us to fast track our entire process. Historically, what used to happen is a data steward would log in at 9 a.m. in a day, see 5 tasks assigned to him or her, and they would go ahead, review that task. They would probably send it for another round of review. They'd probably approve. They'd probably reject, and that's how a transaction will flow
Yeah.
through. But what happens if that task becomes tedious and repetitive? What are the elements of that process
Right.
I can put into AI so that I can say, hey, Mr. David, relax. You can take more tasks than this because there's a lot of agents who can take care of this.
Mm.
So you see, Mr. David is still involved. That human in the loop is still involved.
Yeah.
We still need that model. But yes, the efficiency is going to increase.
Mhm.
So that's one use case. There's many other use cases that we are trying to build within the MDM framework with AI, which could be anywhere from, let's say, a data quality agent who can do a data profiling, who can do your data, who can help you to build some business rules across the data journey. But at the end of the day, when I have the rules, when I am operating those particular rules as a journey, um, I'm the one who's giving the go ahead to say that, hey, these rules are perfect to define the conformity, complexity, integrity of the data. That's completely fine. But at the same time, I'm the person who's making those decisions with business, saying that this is the right rule that is applied and this is how it's going to solve the problem. If that is not happening, then I'm the person who's going to go back, work with AI to fix more, or then possibly just append whatever we want to do, append on top of what we have. So there's that human, like I consider that as a driver of a truck. The human has to be a driver of a truck, even if the truck can go on its own. I know you have a Tesla; it goes on its own, but you still need you to direct
Yeah.
Tesla to where it needs to go and how it needs to navigate and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my little perception about how it may change.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it might have a different definition,
Mhm.
right? It could be I'm seeing a different side of AIs every day,
Uh-huh.
agentic frameworks every day, right? So there could be something new that can completely change this my perspective as well. I'm ready for that.
The C suite wants AI now. However, data teams know the foundation isn't ready. It's a tension enterprises have navigated many times. Whether it's for efficiency or innovation, we discuss next how to make the case for MDM investment without losing the room.
That kind of leads us to our next part of the conversation is around, you brought up efficiency and how do we drive efficiency. That becomes really important and humans need to play a role in that particular aspect of driving efficiency. One of the conversations that happens at the C-suite level is specifically around using AI to drive efficiency, right? AI can be used for other things as well. You have to look at it from an innovation standpoint. We can look at it from introducing new capabilities, so on and so forth. In order to be able to convince a C-suite, and I'm trying to drive a link between that AI ambition to people who think the concept of MDM is an overhead, right? You're talking about, hey, let's do the fundamentals right before I jump to AI, whereas the C-suite is already right there where they want AI as soon as possible. So how do you make the case of both trying to say, hey, you need to invest X amount of dollars, Y amount of time to be able to get your data capabilities, get your MDM strategy strong? How do you go about convincing them through that particular process and help them not to jump too fast ahead?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Tipu. I would say that these are all different puzzle to resolve. So I'm not saying, hey, I don't want legacy, I want something new. It is not that's that simple. The bigger chunk of our problem is to how we can address the business challenge, how we can make sure that we are saving money for our business through our technology solutions. We are being technology efficient, we are being resources efficient. Now, AI is a part which can play a role, but AI cannot be the solution totally, which I want to advocate. So, when we go to customers, of course, they are ready for AI, but at the same time, is their AI working? What are the challenges they're still facing when they are adopting AI at a scale,
Mhm.
right? So you might have the framework, you might have the assets, you might have the resources, but maybe, you need to kind of address your challenge first because your AI might not be functioning properly if you don't have the right data structures, if you don't have the right data quality, your AI cannot resolve your problem. Now, that's the fundamental aspect that everybody understand. Some C-level suite can understand, they might not understand, but they're like, no, I don't want to do this using an MDM. I want to do this something else. And there are ways to do that. There are ways to fix. MDM is something. If I would consider MDM as an application, as a business application, it makes a whole lot of value. But if I want to consider MDM as just a technology solution, it can be done and AI can help you. But we cannot ignore the fact that we do not need that solution, because it is going to help you to build an autonomous solution to enhance your business needs faster. I was just thinking about where I've seen this. It was at Travel and Hospitality that they wanted to implement their parts management system, and they wanted to go and automate a lot of the workflow, and they want to simplify and bring a lot of AI into the practice. Now, what we presented is, yes, the solution is to a lot of these processes can be simplified, and there's a lot of autonomous process that can happen through a agentic layer. But when we are trying to build that, we are seeing that even the data quality that is feeding within those workflows, there's lack of correctness. So even if you have the process established using agentic AI, you're making things faster and making things more efficient and all of that, but you still don't have the right data. So that's why I was saying these are two different sides needs to go together. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I always tell that we cannot forget the legacy platforms and the challenges that we've come through. We cannot forget the data strategies and the I would say the composable architectures, the domain oriented architecture. These still hold a lot of value. Your technologies might be changing, but these are your length of your solution that you need to imbibe within your data ecosystem to make it a larger value for enterprise, including AI.
That's a great point that you brought up, and there are some parallels to the philosophy of life itself, right? You said you cannot forget the challenges that you've gone through as technology evolves, which becomes very, very key. Just like you cannot forget everything that you've done over the course of your life, which made you who you are, because sometimes that's a constant learning that you got to keep at the back of your mind. Jumping too fast into AI, which we have been talking about, without being cognizant of the
Intentions.
challenges
Right.
that we have gone through in terms of our data, in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of the analytic models, is probably going to come back to bite us. So, on that frame, do you at least see a lot of hype that is not justified in the current world when it comes to the data and AI? And how do you think leaders can prioritize to break through that particular hype?
I mean that hype is definitely there. I think more than a hype, it's a pressure, right? Nobody wants
That's
to stay back,
Yeah, that's
right?
a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, the pressure of having it versus using it is more. Um, I always think, Deepu, in a way that when we have a new ideas and new ways of doing things, it could be anything. It could be, when we started to, because you and I think, come from the mainframes of the world as well, and also seen the AI side of the
Yeah.
world. So we have seen the
You're
best of
making
both
us
breeds. So
look old and sound old.
it will hold a lot of value.
Yeah.
I promise you about
Yeah.
that. So anything that comes new is always a hype. It's always a pressure. You remember when AWS and hyperscalers were introduced, everybody wants to go to
Yep.
hyperscalers. Nobody would understand that what it can bring value to my organization. But let's
Yep.
just because my neighbor is buying this, I should buy this. I don't know how to use it, but let me buy this.
Yeah.
Right? So AI is definitely a bigger chunk, because forget about the professional world. You go outside anywhere, everywhere they're like reimagining AI. The banners and the freeways are all about AI. There's you switch on the TV, your TV says, "Let me tell you what to find." Everything is
Yeah.
AI these days, right? And
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's very helpful in our old typical world of life. It sometimes is very overwhelming, and I think as leaders, we should be thinking as how and where to use it versus just using it, right? That mindset needs to happen, right? There's nothing right, there's nothing wrong. I think having AI platforms anywhere could be a challenge, like I said, right? Think about social media these days. We have got so many videos and photos getting uploaded using AI. And at one point in time, people will love to see it. They also understand it's an AI, but at some point they'll be like, now I'm just seeing this everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So now, like sometimes you lose the authenticity of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you lose the credibility of things. I'm not just stating that example, but sometimes, and that's where my data example was there, and the governance example is because if we don't have the uh, right people process to acknowledge AI,
Yeah.
then it's not going to go in the right direction, right? If you remember, at during again, don't quote that I'm calling us old, but during the times when things used to be written in a newspaper or a book,
Yeah.
right? What used to happen? It used to go to a publisher, it used to go to an editor to review, go through the authenticity of it, how much of that is working, and then it gets published.
Mm.
Now, people have got AI, they've got accessibility, they've got social media. People can post anything. If I tell that on a social media and using some agentic platform that, hey, I can convince people this is a red color, but it's actually a yellow. There's ways to convince that. There's no checks. That's so I think that could be a challenge. That could be that hype that you're talking about. But I think more than a hype from an industry standpoint, it's a pressure of doing things without creating a proper business cases.
Yeah.
As a leader, like I said, it's imperative to understand who you are, what you have, and what you want,
Mm-hmm.
and pick those things only that can help. Don't just rush into taking everything and start to fit into your ecosystem.
Emerging technologies like edge computing and data fabric are rewriting the rules on where data lives. Some see that as a threat to MDM with its traditional approach towards data collection and management. Sauvik makes the case that distributed data doesn't necessarily replace master data management, it actually demands it.
I want to take the hype to the next level. Let's think about this upcoming concept called edge compute. You probably have a better opinion and knowledge about this, but edge computing is kind of like a counter to master data management, right? Because now instead of centralizing your data, you're actually trying to move the data to the place where the transaction happens. You are moving it to the edges. So we also talk about this concept of data fabric. That is another thing where you don't need to centralize it, keep the data where it is, bring it and run models and get knowledge and insights as much as possible. In your world, do you see that impacting
Oh
how
yeah,
organizations are asking and looking for the concept of master data management? Is it still being considered kind of like a legacy
absolutely,
capability, or
absolutely.
what's happening there?
It's I wouldn't call it a legacy. What you're calling is more like a distributed ecosystem. Before we used to call it ETLs, now we call it ELTs, and ELTs have changed into something where we make changes at the semantic layers. In MDM also, from a centralized governance versus a distributed.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a insurance world, I've seen a demand of maintaining policies and governance of the policies, which makes sense also at a centralized level versus at a distributed level.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think of that's why tell every I always try to answer every question with a business answer, is
Yeah.
because MDM is a business application.
Mm-hmm.
The intent of MDM is should be always solving business, right? And there's ways to do things. So like if compared to like if you have certain code for a certain policy, maybe the liberty insurance of the world or anywhere which exists globally, right? And then your use cases or the customer or the policy definitions could vary across different geographies. But what happens is even if your definition of that is changing, your ownership may still remain the same.
Mm.
So now you see how your master data management is existing in a very decentralized way, in a distributed way,
Mm-hmm.
globally. So there's a lot of patterns that we've seen, and MDM
Yeah.
is something that I don't want to call it more like I think a lot of people think that it's a legacy. It's not a legacy. It's a framework where, from an architectural standpoint, can be very very flexible across its implementation journey and how you want to govern it from a different ecosystem and different challenges across all the industries.
Yeah. What you're
And
saying
that's
is MDM need not just be a centralized capability. It can be distributed,
doesn't have to
and
be.
using
Absolutely.
governance, you can actually drive MDM in a decentralized and
Absolutely.
faster manner
Yes,
in terms of people wanting to leverage the data that they are trying to access.
absolutely, absolutely. You can. There's always ways of like how you can distribute your workflows, your ownership, your user groups, governance in the MDM world, and then processing, and then the technology components, the or what are the survivorships and data qualities of the world. You can those three or different four different pillars. You can always make it totally centralized, totally decentralized, or you can make it hybrid. Right? It totally depends on how you want. What are you trying to achieve from an MDM in the larger ecosystem?
We've covered the foundation, the governance, and the value case for master data management in an AI world. But where does all of this go from here? I asked Sauvik to look ahead, and his take is both practical and thought provoking. He says, what MDM does won't change, but how you do it is about to look very different.
Let's wrap this with looking into the future. Sitting here today, based on where you're seeing the industry is going, what's happening, and data is so critical to everything that we do, what do you think is the future of the master data management 3 5 years ahead of time? What are the big changes you could see coming? First part of the question. Second part is, if there is one piece of advice you want to convey to other leaders, digital leaders, data leaders, in terms of being prepared for that change in the upcoming years, what would that be?
The journey of data will still be, it's going to go faster. It's going to change drastically with with the AIs of the world. I don't even know what's going to come in next 5 years when we're trying to look at the larger ecosystem of data. But having that said, your data strategy, your data architectures, your the master data management, data quality, governance, these will be this will become more and more useful and more needed to address the challenges. What may change and what will change is that how we do it can be different. What are we going to do it is going to stay the same, right? That's my opinion. Um, at the same time, I think we should be ready with how not just MDM but from a data perspective, what are different industries, different big names like Microsoft or Informaticas of the world, they are bringing to the table, right? We have to be very, very watchful and build solutions faster, right? The how part is going to be really big differentiator, because that agile or that two sprints, those kind of things, now we have to think of how we can make things happen right away. That mentality needs to carry. But that being said, never compromise against your security, never compromise against your data access. I always tell myself our job zero is security, compliance. Anything that becomes a job, that's a topmost priority. Everything else comes second. So be prepared to move things faster.
Yeah.
Don't forget the what. Try to advance yourself in the how, and keep in mind all the different security aspects. So be very watchful to how you want to manage your technology, security, and infrastructure. Keep that. But yes, move faster.
I love what you said over there. You said what we need to do in terms of MDM is not going to change, but how you're going to do it is going to change. And that brings us back to the theme of the conversation itself, right? That MDM is kind of the foundation to be able to move faster, to your point, in the AI world. So I love how that circle basically connects itself so that you can build on it. Yeah,
Absolutely, and going in the right direction, right? Going into, doing things faster as well as in the right way. That's very important, right? We don't want to speed this up. We want to make velocity as a vector, right? So that should be our intention in building larger programs that we go fast.
Yep. Perfect. Awesome. So this has been an amazing conversation. Soik, thanks a lot for the masterclass you provided in terms of master
No,
data
no, it's
management. No, you provided a lot of great info, and I think this was a fantastic conversation, and couldn't be more happier having a first live guest in the podcast.
No, absolutely, Tipu. Thank you so much again. You're doing fantastic, and this initiative that you've taken, I'm very glad. It's my first podcast ever, and doing with somebody I know for years and been a great friend is, of course. I really wish you all the best. I really wish you congratulations. You've been doing fantastic. It's the right intention, and I look forward to this journey. I'll keep looking at your podcasts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
And that's a wrap on our very first live guest episode on the Paalam Labs podcast. I would like to thank Sauvik for his insights on master data management and what it truly means for the AI era. If you want to continue the conversation with Sauvik, his LinkedIn details are on your screen right now. Feel free to reach out. If this conversation resonated with you, follow Paalam Labs on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We are just getting started, and there are a lot more conversations like this one on the way, from business transformations to emerging technology and what it takes to lead in the age of AI. Subscribe, share with the leader in your network, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.